The Love Boat was not only a pop culture icon with its romantic cruises, but also a launch pad for a host of shining stars. Yet behind the glamour of the Pacific Princess lay real-life tragedies: addiction, bankruptcy, illness, and sudden deaths. Many of its cast members endured deep sorrow before passing away. Join us as we uncover and honor the legacies they left behind. Let's go. Gavin McLeod as Captain Merrill Stubing. Gavin McLeod, born Alan George C., was born on February 28, 1931, in Mount Kisco, New York. When he took on the role of Captain Merrill Stubing in The Love Boat in 1977, he was 46 years old, a time when most wouldn't expect to become a global television icon. Yet it was that warm-hearted captain that sailed him into international fame, making his name a household one for millions of viewers over 9 seasons. However, behind the beaming smile on deck were years of anguish and crisis that nearly consumed him. During the 1960s and 1970s, while his career was uncertain and his first marriage to dancer Joan Rootvik was falling apart, Gavin battled alcoholism that took a severe toll on both his mental health and professional life. His early onset baldness also limited his chances at leading roles, prompting him to wear a wig just to continue working in the industry. His addiction not only left him adrift, but also cost him his first wife and their 4 beloved children. Still, his story didn't end in tragedy. In 1984, he underwent a profound spiritual transformation and became a devoted Christian. Alongside his second wife, Patty Kendig, whom he had divorced in 1982, they remarried in 1985 and began leading seminars on broken marriages and spiritual rebirth. Their book, Back on Course, became a source of hope for thousands of couples on the verge of collapse. But time spares no one. After years of declining health, Gavin McLeod passed away on May 29, 2021, at his home in Palm Desert, California, at the age of 90. The family did not disclose the cause of death, only that he passed peacefully. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Cathedral City, alongside many Hollywood stars. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $10 million, earned over 6 decades through film, television, and his role as a beloved symbol of cruise line pop culture. Erin Moran as Carrie Walker. Erin Marie Moran Fleischman was born on October 18, 1960 in Burbank, California. In 1980, when she was 20 years old, she appeared in The Love Boat as Carrie Walker, bringing with her the glow of her earlier fame. But behind the stage lights, Moran's life slowly unraveled into instability and bitterness. From a beloved teen star, Moran quickly faced a sharp decline in her career. After the spin-off Joni Loves Chachi flopped, she was nearly forgotten by Hollywood. In the years that followed, she battled depression, struggled to land meaningful roles, and revealed she had been pressured to become a sex symbol as early as age 15. These psychological wounds lingered for life, especially as she became estranged from the Happy Days cast, at one point calling them evil in an interview, a statement she later denied, though the rift remained apparent. Her first marriage ended in 1993, after which she married Stephen Fleischman. However, that fragile happiness could not rescue her from worsening financial despair. In 2010, her home was foreclosed, and Moran was forced to move into her mother-in-law's mobile home in Indiana. Once a sought-after television star, she now lived in poverty, nearly invisible to the public. By the end of her life, her net worth was estimated at only around $100,000. In late 2016, Moran began showing symptoms of late-stage throat cancer. The disease progressed rapidly, and despite medical efforts, it could not be stopped. On April 22, 2017, Erin Moran was found dead in the mobile home in Corydon, Indiana, at the age of 56. An autopsy confirmed the cause of death as complications from squamous cell carcinoma of the throat. No drugs or toxic substances were found in her body, only solitude and the painful echoes of a life that once shined brightly but ended in quiet obscurity. Ted Knight, as Tom McMahon. Ted Knight, born Tadeusz Władysław Konopka, was born on December 7, 1923, in Terryville, Connecticut. When he appeared on the Love Boat in 1980 as passenger Tom McMahon, he was 57 years old, at the peak of his fame thanks to his iconic role as Ted Baxter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Though he only appeared in a single episode, his presence left a lasting impression thanks to his unmistakable charm and humor. But few knew that behind the laughter was a life marked by pain and a deep yearning to escape the comedic typecasting that dominated his career. Ted had served in Europe during World War II, earning 5 campaign stars. After the war, he began his career in entertainment as a puppeteer, ventriloquist, and children's show host, gradually landing minor roles on screen, including a small part as a security guard in the final scene of Hitchcock's Psycho. It took decades of perseverance before he landed the breakout role of Ted Baxter, the lovable yet bumbling news anchor, which earned him 2 Emmy Awards. However, that very role became a double-edged sword, boxing him into comedic parts and preventing him from proving his long-held desire to be taken seriously as a dramatic actor. Ted admitted he felt great pressure and frustration over not being seen as a versatile artist. The true tragedy began off-camera. In 1977, just months after the Mary Tyler Moore Show ended, he was diagnosed with colon cancer. Though he temporarily recovered and continued starring in Too Close for Comfort, the cancer returned in 1985, spreading to his bladder and digestive system. Knight fought bravely, continuing to film and keeping a smile for audiences, but his body was slowly giving out. On August 26, 1986, Ted Knight passed away in Los Angeles at the age of 62. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. His gravestone bears his real name, Theodore C. Konopka, along with the touching phrase, "Bye Guy," his own play on his trademark line, "Hi Guys," that had endeared him to viewers across America. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at $3 million, earned through years of tireless dedication to television, especially the role that made him immortal in the hearts of the public. Florence Henderson as Annabelle Fulker. Florence Agnes Henderson was born on February 14, 1934, in Dale, Indiana. When she appeared on The Love Boat in 1977 as Annabelle Fulker, she was 43 years old. Her character, a sharp, charming, and full-of-life woman, radiated warmth and vitality, perfectly aligned with the Carol Brady image she had cemented in the hearts of fans through the Brady Bunch. But behind her bright smile and polished television presence lay a life with its own hidden struggles. As the daughter of a struggling farmer during the Great Depression, Florence began singing at the age of 2 and was performing in grocery stores by age 12 to help support her family. After graduating from a performing arts academy, she launched her career on Broadway and went on to become the first woman to host The Tonight Show, a milestone in 1960s television. However, professional glory came with invisible burdens. Henderson battled depression and stage fright, conditions that led her to seek help from hypnotherapist John Kappas, who would later become her second husband. Her first marriage, to Ira Bernstein, lasted nearly 30 years and produced 4 children, but ended in divorce in 1985. In many interviews, she openly shared how balancing the idealized image of a TV mom with the reality of being a mother in real life often left her feeling like a failure. Even into her 70s, Florence never slowed down. She judged pageants, hosted talk shows, took on comedic roles in reality TV, and even competed in Dancing with the Stars in 2010. Just 3 days before her death, she showed up on set to cheer on her former Brady Bunch co-star Maureen McCormick. No one knew it would be the last time they'd see her. On November 24, 2016, Thanksgiving Day, Florence Henderson died suddenly of heart failure at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles at the age of 82. According to her manager, she had shown no signs of illness prior, and her passing came as a complete shock. At the time of her death, Florence Henderson's net worth was estimated at $10 million, earned from over 6 decades of work across television, Broadway, film, and advertising. Rue McClanahan as Mary Hubble. Rue McClanahan, born Eddie Rue McClanahan, was born on February 21, 1934, in Hilton, Oklahoma. In 1982, when she was 48 years old, she appeared on The Love Boat as Mary Hubble, a romantic, seductive, and sharp-witted passenger, the very type of role that would later become her signature. Although it was just a guest appearance, Rue left a lasting impression with her quirky charm, sharp wit, and eyes that always seemed to hide a secret. But Rue's real life was just as fascinating and turbulent as any movie script. She went through 5 marriages, each ending quickly due to incompatibility, betrayal, or, as she once humorously said, "I chose men like I was picking a comedy, but I kept ending up in horror films." The divorces left her emotionally and financially scarred. Rue's career reached its peak when she played Blanche Devereaux, the man-chasing Southern belle in the hit sitcom The Golden Girls. Beneath Blanche's flirtatious exterior was a nuanced and complex character, mirroring Rue herself, a woman who had battled depression, painkiller addiction, and breast cancer in the late 1990s. After undergoing a mastectomy and chemotherapy, she recovered and became actively involved in cancer awareness campaigns, turning her pain into purpose. However, Rue's health deteriorated seriously after she suffered a minor stroke in 2009, which led to heart surgery. She tried to recover, but just 1 year later, on June 3, 2010, Rue McClanahan passed away from a massive stroke at a hospital in New York. She was 76 years old. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at around $5 million, mostly stemming from the success of The Golden Girls, her stage roles, and image royalties. Jessica Walter as Holly Hartman. Jessica Walter was born on January 31, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York. At 37 years old, she appeared in the hit television series The Love Boat in 1978, portraying Holly Hartman, a sharp, worldly woman carrying deep emotional wounds. It was a brief role but left a powerful impression, perfectly reflecting her aura, cold, alluring, and always hiding a quiet sorrow. But Jessica's real life was even more complex and painful. After her breakout role as the unhinged villain in Play Misty for Me, 1971, which earned her a Golden Globe nomination, Jessica faced years of loneliness throughout the 1970s. Her peak came too soon, and she became typecast, often rejected for leading roles for being too intense or too intimidating. Alone in her own spotlight, Jessica gradually became a forgotten face on the big screen. Her only marriage, to actor Ron Liebman, was a stronghold for over 30 years. But when Ron passed away in 2019, Jessica was emotionally devastated. She had no children, no close family, and lived quietly in her Manhattan apartment. In her final years, she had only her beloved dog and a collection of unfinished memoirs. On March 24, 2021, Jessica Walter passed away in her sleep at home. She was 80 years old. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at around $4 million. Peter Graves as Carl Lawrence. Peter Graves was born on March 18, 1926, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 1978, when he was 52 years old, Graves appeared on The Love Boat as Carl Lawrence, a sophisticated passenger who brought depth and elegance to the metaphor-laden cruise ship. It was one of his most beloved supporting roles, showcasing the evolution of a seasoned television star adapting to a more humorous and romantic environment. However, behind the stage lights, Peter Graves' life wasn't entirely smooth. In 1984, while vacationing with his family at Lake Tahoe, he slipped on an icy road and suffered a serious facial and jaw injury. He was hospitalized, received over 100 stitches to his lower lip, and had to eat through a straw for weeks. The injury affected not only his appearance, but also forced him to step back from television projects. Colleagues at the time said Graves experienced mild depression, feeling a loss of control and fearing the inevitability of aging. Despite this, he worked hard to preserve his 60-year marriage with his only wife, Joan Endress. But even that stability had its strains, from his frequent absences while filming abroad, especially during the reboot of Mission Impossible in Australia, to differences in religion and how to raise their 3 daughters. The family endured a long period of tension when one of the daughters dropped out of school to pursue the arts, something Graves, a strict traditionalist, found difficult to accept. Amid these private storms, he returned to the big screen with a satirical role in Airplane, 1980, which helped reshape his previously serious image into something more relatable and humorous. However, his long and respected career ended on a note of disappointment. Graves declined to appear in the 1996 Mission Impossible film because his character, Jim Phelps, was turned into a villain, something he felt betrayed the soul of the original series. He later admitted it was the first time he felt Hollywood had bitterly erased my legacy. On March 14, 2010, just 4 days before his 84th birthday, Peter Graves suddenly died of a massive heart attack outside his Los Angeles home after having lunch with his family. His daughter attempted CPR but was unsuccessful. At the time of his death, Peter Graves's net worth was estimated at around $8 million, a result of decades of dedication to television, particularly from Mission Impossible and his role as host of Biography on A&E throughout the 1990s. Carol Channing as Aunt Sylvia. Carol Channing was born on January 31, 1921, in Seattle, Washington. When she was 59 years old, she appeared in The Love Boat in 1980 as Aunt Sylvia, a quirky, energetic, and life-loving aunt, perfectly in line with the Broadway flair that defined her career. Though it was just a guest role, Carol brought vibrancy and color to The Love Boat, as if she were on stage performing Hello, Dolly, the iconic role that had catapulted her to stardom. But behind the scenes, Carol's life was not always a cheerful musical. She married 4 times, with some marriages causing emotional pain and long periods of loneliness, particularly her first marriage to writer Theodore Neidish, of whom Carol once said, "He never understood my soul." She worked tirelessly to avoid the feeling of abandonment. At one point, she even lived in her car while touring across America in the 1940s, just to earn enough money to send home to support her mother. Her relationship with her only son, Channing Carson, was also strained. After divorcing her second husband, she sent her son to boarding school at a young age. They remained distant for decades, to the point where her son even changed his last name to sever ties with his mother. Carol carried that pain for the rest of her life, once breaking into tears during an interview when she spoke of her mistake in choosing the stage over being a full-time mother. Throughout her career, she continued to shine, from thoroughly modern Millie to prestigious Broadway stages. But ovarian cancer silently eroded her health from the late 1990s, something she kept secret, continuing to perform despite the pain. In her final years, Carol remarried her high school sweetheart, Harry Colligan, in what seemed to be an attempt to heal the regrets of youth. But he passed away just a year after their wedding, leaving her once again drowning in loss. Jane Meadows as Mrs. Tate. Jane Meadows, born Jane Cotter, was born on September 27, 1919, in Wuchang, China, into an American missionary family. In 1978, when she was 59 years old, she appeared in The Love Boat as Mrs. Tate, a refined, elegant lady, mirroring the polished appearance and composed demeanor she carried from Broadway to television. But beneath that glamorous exterior was a life filled with quiet turns, sacrifices, and nearly a century of loss. Jane's first marriage to screenwriter Milton Crims ended after 5 years, marking a period of lonely heartbreak. Just when she had nearly lost faith in marriage, she met Steve Allen, the legendary comedian and television host. They married in 1954 and remained together for 46 years, becoming one of Hollywood's rare, enduring artistic couples. But their marriage was far from easy. Steve was an eccentric genius who often pressured her into difficult roles, like Cleopatra or Catherine the Great in the historical series Meeting of Minds, threatening to divorce you if you refuse. Jane smiled on camera, but deep down, she endured years of self-sacrifice to maintain the image of a perfect artistic wife. Behind the scenes, she also took on the role of stepmother to Steve's 3 children from a previous marriage while raising their only son, Bill. In an interview, she once admitted that being a mother in an artistic family was like a juggling act that never ends, and you're not allowed to drop a single ball. That pressure drove Jane into relentless work. In addition to acting, she started a travel company, wrote books, gave political speeches, and continued appearing on television, including in episodes of Diagnosis, Murder, and Homicide, life on the street alongside her husband in his final years. In 2000, when Steve Allen died suddenly of a heart attack, Jane was devastated. She withdrew from public life and lived quietly in her home in Encino. In 2009, she fell and broke her hip, a fall that ended all her artistic activity and marked the beginning of a long decline. Jane Meadows passed away on April 26, 2015, at the age of 95. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at around $10 million, largely accumulated from decades in television, theater, and the personal brand she built herself. David Hedison as Cliff Jacobs. Albert David Hedison, Jr., born on May 20, 1927. In The Love Boat, he played Cliff Jacobs, a charming gentleman with a complex inner world. When he joined the series in 1980, he was 53 years old, a stage in life when the spotlight was quietly beginning to fade from him. He had once been well loved for playing Felix Leiter in 2 James Bond films, Live and Let Die and License to Kill, and it seemed he had a solid career ahead. But after age 50, acting offers became increasingly scarce, and he began to feel forgotten by Hollywood. This deeply affected his mental health, especially as he grew envious of the rising new generation of actors during the transition between the 1970s and 1980s. What seemed like a happy marriage with journalist Bridget Hedison also began to show cracks. Family sources revealed that David became withdrawn, distant, and often declined family gatherings. He became obsessed with the thought that the audience no longer remembered him. And although his daughter Alexandra Hedison later became a well-known artist and married Jodie Foster, David almost never publicly expressed pride in her. Some old friends said he feared being seen as a shadow in his own family. David's final years were marked by loneliness, as close friends passed away, most notably Roger Moore, his longtime friend and fellow Bond actor. After Moore's death, David experienced a noticeable emotional collapse. He suffered from severe hand tremors, insomnia, and had to be hospitalized after falling downstairs due to a loss of balance. David Hedison died on July 18, 2019, in Los Angeles at the age of 92. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at about $1.5 million, most of which was left to his 2 daughters, a modest legacy from a man who once lit up the silver screen. Audrey Lindley as Mrs. Worth. Audra Marie Lindley was born on September 24, 1918, in Los Angeles, California. She played the role of Mrs. Worth in The Love Boat at 59 years old, bringing a seasoned grace and a uniquely classic charm. But behind the spotlight of a woman who always made others laugh was a quiet life filled with sorrowful turns and emotional wounds that never truly healed. She married screenwriter Hardy Ohm in 1943, had 5 children, and paused her career to fully dedicate herself to motherhood. Yet the seemingly peaceful family life turned out to be a series of silent sacrifices. Hardy died suddenly in 1970, leaving Lindley alone with the burden of raising their children and a lingering emptiness. 3 years later, she unexpectedly remarried actor James Whitmore, a man who once seemed like the light at the end of her tunnel. However, that marriage lasted only until 1979 and ended in divorce, right around the time her iconic comedic role as Helen Roper in Three's Company propelled her into the spotlight. Behind Helen's flashy wigs and witty lines was a woman using laughter to mask a deep crisis of loneliness and aging. In an interview during the 1980s, she once said, "Success at this age isn't like when you're 30. It's like having a party in an empty room not knowing if anyone else is coming." When the Ropers spin-off failed after 2 seasons, Audrey became sensitive about fame and gradually stepped away from leading roles. In the 1990s, Lindley began to show visible signs of fatigue. She appeared in Friends as Phoebe's grandmother, a beloved guest role, but in reality she was quietly battling leukemia at the time. No one besides her family knew that after each scene she had to sit backstage with an oxygen tank. Audrey Lindley passed away on October 16, 1997, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, just 3 weeks after her 79th birthday. She was cremated, and her ashes were buried next to her parents in Santa Monica. Her estimated net worth at the time of death was around $3 million, mostly earned from Three's Company and nearly 50 years of tireless work on screen, even though she never truly saw money as her ultimate goal. Bert Convi, as Ted Meyer. Bernard Whalen, Bert Convi, was born on July 23, 1933, in St. Louis, Missouri. In the Love Boat episode Legal Eagles, aired in 1978, he played Ted Meyer, a divorced man who falls into a complicated romance with his ex-wife's lawyer. At that time, Convi was 45 years old and at the peak of his fame, enjoying a booming television career. Few people knew that behind his confident on-screen smile, Bert Convi was facing a 3-decade-long marriage that collapsed just before his death. He and his first wife, Ann Anderson, had 3 children together, but their marriage ended in 1991, only a few months before he passed away. In a controversial move, Convi married his second wife, Catherine Hills, exactly 5 months before drawing his final breath. In the late 1980s, while his career was thriving with hit game shows like Tattletales, Super Password, and Win, Lose, or Draw, Convi suddenly collapsed while visiting his mother in the hospital. Scans revealed he had glioblastoma, a grade 4 brain cancer that is devastating and nearly untreatable. This terrible news forced him to withdraw from all artistic activities and crushed all future plans. Close friends said he spent his final months enduring indescribable physical and emotional pain. With the image of a handsome, charismatic man beloved by millions of American television viewers, Bert Convi's death shocked all of Hollywood. He died on July 15, 1991, at his home in Brentwood, Los Angeles, just 8 days before his 58th birthday. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at about $2.5 million, mostly from hosting game shows and royalties from television programs he co-founded with Burt Reynolds. Gordon Jump as Bill Piermont. Gordon Jump was born on April 1, 1932, in Dayton, Ohio. In the Love Boat episode The Spoonmaker Diamond, 1980, he played Bill Piermont, a middle-aged gentleman caught in a strange plot involving a stolen diamond. At that time, Jump was 48 years old and gaining widespread fame for his role as Arthur Big Guy Carlson in the legendary sitcom WKRP in Cincinnati. In contrast to the humorous and lovable characters he portrayed on screen, Gordon Jump's real life contained many layers of emotion, especially in his later years. After WKRP ended, Jump took on the role of the Maytag repairman in a series of commercials that ran from 1989 all the way through 2003, cementing his image in the American public's mind as loyal, dependable, and trustworthy. However, by the late 1990s, Jump began to show signs of declining health. He was diagnosed with pulmonary fibrosis, a chronic and incurable lung disease that slowly robs a person of the ability to breathe. In his final months, he lived quietly with his family, far from the spotlight. He passed away on September 22, 2003, at his home in Los Angeles, just months after officially retiring from the entertainment industry. He was 71 years old when he drew his last breath. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $3 million, mostly from his television roles, commercial appearances, and voiceover work. Artie Johnson, as Dr. Wilfred Jones. Arthur Stanton, Eric Artie Johnson, was born on January 20th, 1929, in Benton Harbor, Michigan. In The Love Boat, he played the role of Dr. Wilfred Jones, a humorous and eccentric character who made audiences laugh, though also left them bewildered by his excessive behavior. When he appeared in the series in 1978, Artie Johnson had just turned 49 years old. Audiences best remember Artie for his portrayal of the German soldier in Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, wearing a steel helmet and whispering, "Very interesting," a phrase that became a signature line of his life. But few people knew that behind the energetic exterior and natural comedic talent was a soul in pain, someone who always felt loved only when hiding behind a mask. Offstage, Artie lived a quiet life. No children, no scandals, but also no one who truly understood the loneliness of a man who spent his life making others laugh while silently sliding deeper into a long, private depression. After the 1980s, his acting career gradually faded. Job offers declined as tastes in comedy shifted. He tried his hand at voice acting, writing TV scripts, even narrating audiobooks, but none of these gave him the same sense of belonging he once felt in front of a camera, hearing audiences burst into laughter after every punchline. Alone in his Los Angeles apartment, Artie withdrew more and more, living on memories of old applause. In his final years, he battled bladder cancer for over a decade. He avoided the media, declined interviews, and refused to appear at any reunion events. When his illness worsened in 2018, he was nearly unable to speak, the most painful loss for an actor who had once lived by his voice. On July 3, 2019, Artie Johnson passed away at a special care facility in Los Angeles. He was 90 years old. Artie Johnson's net worth was estimated at around $2 million, most of which came from his years of fame. From the romantic voyages of The Love Boat, stars like Gavin McLeod and Moran have left behind unforgettable legacies, even though their lives were filled with turbulence. Which character was your favorite, and which tragic story moved you the most? Share your thoughts and continue exploring the legends behind the scenes.